Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and take a look at the iPhone 14 and compare it against the iPhone 13 Pro and see which particular iPhone is the better one for you. Now, the big thing I can definitely tell you is that if you are about to go through and pick up some sort of an iPhone, if you can pick up the latest and greatest iPhone, that definitely would make the most amount of sense. Getting something like an iPhone 14 would definitely make a lot more sense for me than something like an iPhone 13 Pro, right? That's kind of one of the big things to kind of keep in mind here. But I would say beyond that, if you are about to go through and, pick up a phone, I still think an iPhone 13 Pro is also a very good option as well. So we'll take a look at it throughout this whole entire video. But if you do want to go ahead and pick up an iPhone 14 or an iPhone 13 Pro, links will be down in the description below. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of both these phones. The iPhone 13 Pro originally came out in 2021. So what I can definitely tell you is that with a phone like the iPhone 13 Pro, this is still a very, very good phone for the most part. With this type of device, as you probably would have guessed it, these types of phones are giving you very good types of displays on the front side. So they're still going to be able to go through and give you, a 6.1 inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. And that right there is something that's really nice. I love having a display like this. And this was also basically the first iPhone that basically came out that was giving you a 120 Hz display. So that right there was also another really cool advantage. And if you were about to go through and pick up an iPhone, that right there was going to be giving you a pretty solid type of experience from that side. It still has the notch, but it's not a terrible looking device, and I still think for the most part, if you were about to go through and pick up an iPhone, this thing does give you a pretty good type of layout for the most part. So I will tell you from that side, although it's not the most perfect display of all time, I do think it still is a really good looking device, and it still is 120 Hz. And I do think that in and of itself is a really cool thing going on for that type of device when it comes down to it. Now, with the iPhone 14, this one's a slightly different story. So within this iPhone, it is giving you a little bit of a different type of experience here. So with the iPhone 14, this one's giving you a 6.1 inch Super Retina, XDR OLED display. So this is something that's actually really cool because this is still also a really good type of phone as well, right? With a device like this type of phone is going to be able to give you a good solid experience as well. So it's not going to be anything super crazy, super terrible. It is only a 60 Hertz panel though. So that's something that is kind of unfortunate. If you were able to go through and get a device like this, if you were able to go through and get a device that was giving you a little bit of a better type of layout, then there might be some better options out there. But with something like the iPhone 13 Pro, this type of device, it's not necessarily going to be the best of the best anymore. And with a phone like an iPhone 13 Pro, that one might be the one that's able to be giving you just an overall better type of experience from that particular side. So again, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but once again, it is going to be one of those big things that you're going to be noticing from that particular situation. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. Now they're both flat-sided. They're both going to be giving you lightning ports at the bottom, which again is very nice to have. Beyond that though, there's not really anything else super insane, at least on the back side. The back side is slightly different, as you can probably imagine. The iPhone 13 Pro is going to be giving you this frosted glass back, where the iPhone 14 is going to be giving you this solid glass back. So that right there is also going to be another one of these big things to keep in mind here, because if you are about to go through and pick up a device, then it probably would make a lot more sense to go ahead and buy a phone that might be giving you just an overall better experience. And between these two types of devices, we're not really too sure, again, it's up to you which one you like, but I think the 13 Pro is probably going to be the one that's going to be the better looking one and better feeling one for the most part than the iPhone 14. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there as well. Now, when it comes down to the price tag side, this is also going to be another big difference. The iPhone 14 right now is basically going to be costing about $341, where the iPhone 13 Pro is costing about $379. So the 13 Pro in theory still costs a little bit more money than something like an iPhone 14. So that right there is also going to be another big difference here, because if you are about to go through and pick up a phone once again, well, it would make more sense, as you can probably imagine, for getting something like an iPhone 13 Pro, even though it's a little bit more expensive. But the 14 could be more appealing because it's newer and cheaper. So that in and of itself is another one of those things to keep in mind there as well. Now, on top of that, another very big thing to keep in mind here too is the fact that with something like the iPhone 14 and 13 Pro, the cameras are slightly different. So within the cameras, they're both, the 14 is a dual camera setup. The 13 Pro is a triple camera setup. So if you're able to go through and like find a camera or, get a camera that's going to be giving you an overall better experience, the 13 Pro has an advantage because it does have the extra telephoto lens, but the 14 is also still going to be like a very good performing device here too. So you're not really going to feel like you're missing out on like an insane amount when it comes down to it, but it is a very true statement that something like an iPhone 14, the quality of that lens might be good and better in some areas, but the 13 Pro is probably going to be the better one in my personal situation. So from that side too, that kind of covers it up there. When it comes down to the software longevity side, this is also another very big key takeaway. If you are wanting the phone that is going to be giving you the overall better experience when it comes down to software longevity, then something like an iPhone 13 Pro would kind of be the one that would, that wouldn't necessarily last as long as something like an iPhone 14. So the 14 has the higher likelihood here of lasting for a longer period of time. So if you are wanting the phone that is going to be giving you longer software support, then the iPhone 14 would kind of be the one because it is going to be the longer lasting device here. With something like the iPhone 13, I think that type of device is still, good. You're not really running into too many problems there. But like I mentioned, if you are wanting the phone that is going to be giving you the overall better experience, then definitely something like an iPhone 13 Pro is probably going to be the one that's going to still be lasting for quite a few years. But the iPhone 14 is going to be the one that's going to be the longer lasting one here as far as I can tell. And finally, when it comes down to the performance, this is another one of those big things to keep in mind here as well. So between both these devices, when you look at something like an iPhone 14, this type of device, right, is still, still going to be a very fast phone. So the 14 basically is giving you the Apple A15 Bionic chip inside with 6 gigs of RAM, where the iPhone 13 Pro is giving you the Apple A15 Bionic chip inside with 6 gigs of RAM as well. So both these phones are actually giving you relatively similar type of experience here for the most part. So I do think that right there is actually a really cool thing to think about from that particular situation. So if you are about to go through and pick up a device, I do think that type of device would probably make a lot more sense to go and buy in most cases. I feel like those types of devices do a really good job at kind of giving you like basically everything you need to within a device. And I do think that in and of itself is actually a really cool thing when it comes down to it as well. Again, it's not necessarily like the craziest thing ever, but if you are about to go through and pick up a device, I do think getting devices like this might make a lot more sense in some situations as well. So again, not the biggest deal in the world, but if you are about to go through and pick up a device, again, like I mentioned, it probably would make a lot more sense to go and buy something like an iPhone 14 in some cases. So, in my personal opinion, when you're taking a look at both these devices, I do think, the iPhone 14, it is the newer one, and it is the one that does make kind of more sense to go and buy for the most part. Whereas with something like the iPhone 13 Pro, I feel like this one has more features, and it's just kind of like a better device in some ways, but it does kind of lack maybe in the software longevity standpoint. But I do think the 13 Pro would be the one I'd recommend more people to buy, just because it does actually give you kind of just better types of capability, right? Like it gives you like a better type of display, better type of camera. And that's personally just kind of how I see it for the most part. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.